Director of Programming with the VBC. We have Pete Mecca's A Veteran Story tonight, though I don't see Pete here in the room, so we'll see. I would assume that Pete it might be indisposed at this current moment, but hopefully we'll see him soon. Otherwise, I'll get started with the program. I want to talk a little bit about what VBC has coming up as far as online events. And I'm going to pop over and share my screen here. Let me get to the right screen because now you guys have so many tabs open and all that stuff. It's always just let's see here. Here we go. We have something fun coming up on Monday. I'm going to be hosting that night specifically. Valentine's Day is coming up, guys, if you don't know. So Monday night, we have Carol Van Den Hend, who won a lot of awards for her book, Goodbye Orchard. I'm really interested in her coming on to talk about this because I think she was inspired by some veteran stories. And though I'm not sure if she was a veteran herself. So I'm just excited to research her and dive into her story. And this is her only novel. Believe it or not, she wrote one novel and won a bunch of awards. So that's pretty awesome. Wednesday, we're going to have open conversation. Todd will be on for that morning, that coffee hour. And if you're seeing here, Monday, February 21st, I'll be back to host that as well. The famous Buffalo Soldiers, 24th Infantry Regiment. We're going to have Curtis Morrow, a Korean War veteran of the 24th Regiment, and regimental historian Daryl Nash on to talk as we are into Black History Month now. And then a Greatest Generation Live, which will be on Tuesday, February 22nd at 7 p.m. So looking forward to a lot of these great events coming up throughout the winter here as we kind of trudge through and make it into the spring, where we'll be back to some level of in-person events that we'll be excited to share more about. We also finished up our VBC magazine, and that will be released and put into the mail soon. So if you are a member, I think you get it even if you're not a member. But if you haven't become a member yet of the VBC, it's super easy. You just go to our website, right up top. You can click on that, $36 for the year. You get discounts on merch. You get invited to our once a month membership special events that we hold here on Zoom. And you also get that really great magazine, which is quarterly. And I've heard some incredible reviews. Brad, I'm going to highlight you real quick. Brad, you've got this magazine before multiple times, as we've released, I think 3 or 4 of them thus far. Can you give us like a bird's eye view or what your review is of them?
Well, I tell you, it's well done. It's a cross section of a lot of people with great stories. And when you pick it up, I've read it front to cover, front to back several times. It's just the pictures, the stories, the words all come together. And it really represents our veterans and our veteran community so well. You know, I'm proud to be part of an organization that puts out such a quality publication.
Brad being one of our board members, so we make sure that he gives us good word whenever we can. But this next one's going to be a really great one too, because we have a story inside of it it's a very interesting story of this a woman who was found. She was a baby in South Vietnam, Kim, and she was picked up by a soldier, carried to a nursery. They took care of her there. An American soldier came and adopted her. She came to the United States. She ended up joining the Navy. We have a lot of her story in there. We have a really great article about the Soviet Union. Hear a lot about the hotspot in Ukraine right now. Well, this is a really great article about the Cold War. So I think you'll be all interested to read that whenever it hits your mailboxes. Tonight, joining us, where are you at? Now it says Jenny.
I warned you about the technology. I'm on my wife's laptop.
Right. So your actual name is John?
Yeah, I'm a John without the H. I'm a Jonathan, but I've been Jon for 75 years.
That's right. I'm a Sean with a U, so I totally hear you.
Right.
Is John Hemp, you were a canine handler and a Vietnam vet, is that correct?
Correct.
An Army, I'm guessing?
Nope.
Marines?
Air Force.
Air Force, really?
He had all the dogs.
Now, see, I'm gonna full disclosure here. Pete usually runs his program, so he knows you a little better than I do. So I'm gonna be kind of piecing this together as we go along. But
Cool.
we've had on Army canine handlers before. I did not know that Air Force had canine handlers.
The United States Air Force had about 70% of the dogs in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
They were all sentry dog. The other branches were starting to develop already with the scout dogs, booby, mine dogs, trackers. But the biggest representation of canine throughout the entire 12 years of the Vietnam War was Air Force canine.
Now, talk to me. Let's take a step back. Air Force. Why did you decide on Air Force?
Mediocre sophomore college student in the Bay Area of San Francisco Bay Area on the East Bay side. Wasn't focused sufficiently to avoid the draft with good grades. So draft physical notice showed up. I knew I was going to pass that. I was already dead meat. That was the first week of October 1965. Mm-hmm. And as they said it would, the brown envelope showed up about 3 weeks later. I really didn't want to wear a helmet and carry a rifle and crawl around in the grass and shoot at people. So I thought the Navy or the Air Force, might be a good option. Neither would talk to me at the time. It was only
just because of like the grades. Because
I wanted, as long as you don't open that draft notice, you're still semi-safe. And I handed over my sealed draft notice on the 25th of October to an Air Force recruiter when he found out that I hadn't tested yet. Wanted to see my test scores before he kicked me down the street. And I think I nailed the predecessor to the ASVAB. Low 90s, not bad for a flunky from Berkeley, California. And he changed his mind real quick about accepting me into the Air Force. I thought I was headed for air traffic control or ordnance or logistics, or, with that kind of score, I ought to be able to pick and choose jobs pretty well. Loadmaster, right. Maybe. I see 130s in the background down there, Ben. Got the basic training and everything changed. They marched 44 of us out onto the PT field after a very long extended basic training due to the virus that hit Lackland back in the winter of 65, spring, first of 66, meningitis. So our basic training was interrupted. Our 6 to 8 weeks of basic training was extended by 4 weeks. Finished basic in late February, marched us out onto a PT field. He called the first 4 names with orders off of his clipboard. Those 4 guys were going to Chanute for cook school. And he chucked the remaining 40 orders into the mud on his clipboard and told us, the rest of us bastards, that we were going to MP school at Kelly next door the starting morning. So I became a cop.
Were you upset by that transition?
I'm sorry?
Were you upset by that sort of like that change?
It was a little disappointing because I was back to wearing a helmet and carrying a rifle. And 4 years of Air Force instead of 2 years of Army. Yeah. That's how I got into the Air Force.
And what year was that again?
It was got my notice in 65. Showed up in San Antonio in late December 65. Completed basic in February and completed. Back then they called us Air Police.
Okay.
Go figure, right? But the MP school for the Air Force was 8 weeks, and that was at Kelly Air Force Base right next door to Lackland. So I was down there for an extended period without saying home or anything else. Got my first assignment orders. Don't know who I really ticked off. And Julia, I'm being careful with my expletives and my F-bombs, okay? I don't know who I upset in MP school, but my first duty assignment was Wheelus Air Base, Tripoli, Libya for 18 months remote. And I scratched my head all the way
I'm
over.
scratching my head now. So yeah.
Yeah, scratched my head all the way over to Libya. Arrived in Libya in May of 66.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to keep going? There's some good stories sitting here looking at me.
Oh, I definitely want you to keep going because, I'm also thinking like your family. What was your family like at this point? Like your
I
parents?
am one of 7 children.
Okay.
The third son. The first 4 were boys, and my sister arrived, the thorn among the roses, and then two more guys after her.
Wow.
We all. I actually grew up in Albany, California, down on the flats.
Mm-hmm.
My best friends were Filipino and Japanese. It was white kids were a little unusual there, but my dad made a very incredible, good business call and went from wondering how he was going to put groceries on the table to an extremely successful businessman in a period of about a year. So we all elevated ourselves up into the Berkeley Hills. And I finished elementary and high school in Berkeley.
Were you the only one that went into service?
No, oldest brother followed me into the Air Force about a year or 2 after I went in. But a younger brother, just younger than me, went Navy, incredible mind, aviation guy, a graduate of Cal Poly in aviation engineering, aeronautical engineering. And Brother Tim became the DC-9 guru for the Navy for his career and time with the Navy, which overlapped into reserves and commercial pilot time that he developed later.
Were your parents thankful that you went Air Force as opposed to Army?
I think my mom was thankful, thinking I was going to be, super safe. I mean, what the hell could the Air Force do that would get him in trouble, right?
Right.
My dad was smarter than my mom. My dad knew the minute he found out I was going MP that it's going to be a long 4 years. And Air Force security police, which it became later in 66, not unlike the Marine Corps, not unlike the Army or the Navy, force protection. 10% or less are law enforcement, and the other 90% are security and asset protection. And being the Green Pea in the Air Force back in 66 with a extremely fast growing population in the Air Force, I was going to be security and asset protection. I wasn't going to see a whole lot of white hat.
When you say Green Pea, is that
Green Pea?
Yeah.
The Green Pea is the Jeep, the junior expendable enlisted personnel. Lowest ranking guy on the block. It was a Green Pea.
Okay.
And so I ended up on the security side, humping aircraft ramps and fuel cells and radar sites and some other strange stuff until I realized, I noticed that the canine guys just seemed to have it all wrapped up and a whole lot better than we had it. And they got to spend it was all nights. They were the night vision of the military back then. There weren't starlight scopes handed out like lollipops like they are now. So the night side guys worked fewer nights with days off faster, although one of those days had to be a training day at the kennels. They had more time off. And they got to spend it with a dog. And
not a bad thing.
Growing up with puppies and stuff, that wasn't going to be anything unusual. And so when 6 lots opened up in June of 66 at Wheelus Air Base, I'm a Green Pea in security now on the ramp.
And you'd only been doing that for a couple months at that point.
Well, I was, didn't reach canine until almost 6 months into the Air Force.
Okay.
But there were 6 slots for the Wiesbaden Dog School that opened up, and they were going to send 6 handlers, candidates from Wheelus Air Base to Wiesbaden to do 8 weeks of canine training, formal canine training, much the same as identical programs to what was going on at Lackland and what was going on at Okinawa.
Mhm.
And I thought, hell, this is cool. I get to go to Germany for 8 weeks and play around and go to school and learn about puppies, right? Muammar Gaddafi screwed that all up. He started raising hell before he was supposed to, and scared Idris out of the country. The king got all the money and left and went to England. And things started going south as early as summer '66 in Libya. And the relationships in the community that the base was located in went south right along with it. And they scrubbed the 6 tickets for Wiesbaden, and in exchange came up with 3 OJT slots there at Wheelus on the job training.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't, thinking 8 weeks of school, how long is OJT going to go? Mm. Well, the OJT was a qualified senior dog handler assigned to a green pea dog handler coming in. And the time it took for certification was the time it took you to ace every test or checkpoint in the canine manual. Mm-hmm. And so 3 of us, 3 senior handlers were pulled from the duty roster, and 3 green pea dog handlers came into the kennels. I was one of them.
How did you get selected for that?
Interview process and a little probably background check, because canine very often ends up in some locations that even a straight leg isn't allowed in, nuke, that type of stuff. So I was proud of myself. I think there was about 100 and some applicants, whittled down to the 6 that were going to go to school. And I was still standing when the 3 were selected. So I got to take my hat off to a guy named Brenner that I was assigned to. My training took longer than the other 2 guys. They were on post 2 weeks before I got there. But my guy didn't squeak at all. He did not give me an inch. If I didn't ace the tests, if I didn't ace the testing protocols, the dog behavior care, all that, I had to go back and do that unit over again. Mm-hmm. So it took me about 7 to 9 weeks, somewhere in there, to complete the quote OJT training that the Air Force had come up with as an option.
Can you take me a bit through that OJT? Like what did you have to do? Were you handed a dog that you had to learn its behavior and develop that collaboration?
You better understand canine military sentry dog behavior, or you're not going to survive. The Air Force pretty much led the way on sentry dog. The Army sent their handler, the missile site Army handlers went to Air Force Canine School. Mm-hmm. Because of the sentry dog program being hosted and administered by the Air Force. These dogs are dogs off of somebody's property. My dog and Nam came off a farm in Enid, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. They were donations. The acquisition process wasn't really purchasing as it is today, or breeding like the breeding program that goes on at Lackland. As long as the dog was 90% or more German Shepherd, didn't require paperwork, mm-hmm. but 90% or more German Shepherd, good sized dog, minimum 45, 50 pounds. I don't know what the maximum was. I saw a 128-pound dog in Vietnam. But
a Bernese Mountain Dog?
Oh no, this is a German Shepherd.
128-pound German Shepherd?
128-pound black and tan German Shepherd.
That's a dire wolf.
Well, he was monster.
Yeah.
They have to try. Dogs have a personality, much like humans. Every mm-hmm. one of them is different. The Air Force's biggest challenge was matching handler mentality and aptitude with dog mentality and aptitude. Mm-hmm. You have an animal that you have beaten, literally beaten, brooms, sticks. I don't want to paint a picture that they were unfair, mean, inhumane. The whole point of sentry dog was plug up a hole, make sure that it's plugged up. Mm-hmm. So you have to have, Julia, can I say badass? Okay.
You've been given permission.
You have to have the biggest badass son of a gun on 4 legs on your left hip.
Mhm.
the minute you get off the truck to go to work. We broke dogs that were sent back. I'm sure the Air Force at Lackland broke dogs in initial aggression training.
Mhm.
But the whole point of a sentry dog is one dog, one handler, and 20 acres at night. You got a dog team that's plugging up what a platoon would struggle to cover.
Mhm.
Now, our primary is detection and notification that a perimeter is breached, but you still got to survive. And it's not Girl Scouts coming through the fence. It's some bad people, some evil people with and
Yeah.
they'd love to have your dog patch or your dog's ear with a tattoo in it, because in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia, you could, if you were the VC or bandit Arabs, you could take that into the local mosque in Egypt and retire on what they paid you for the patch or the ear. They hated dogs. They were so incredibly efficient in stopping incursions that we were the top of the bandito list on their lists, I'm sure.
Right.
Take the dog out and you'll be able to get through. But
So it seems, I mean, that's to say nothing. The training of the dog is to say nothing for how you were trained. So
yeah, my initial 2 weeks of training, I had a leash attached to a 50 cal ammo can. That was my dog.
Mhm.
And I had to train an ammo can. And if I didn't train the ammo can properly, I had to go back and do it again.
Mhm.
I didn't even know what dog I was going to be assigned to. I didn't know they don't even let you know of the availability until you get through basic, until you can pass all the tests in the manual. And then you go into the field training, which is where you're matched up to a pooch. You have to acquire a trust with this animal whose sole purpose in life is destroying anything other than his handler. And if you don't get bit, you're not a rodeo rider. So it's really unusual back in those days to have a sentry dog handler that didn't have pretty good scars in his calves or his buttocks or arm or sometimes the face.
I'm guessing you have some scars.
I got scars. I talked to the kids that do it today. I've been blessed. I've been given an opportunity, and we were talking earlier, to go say thank you.
Yeah.
They train dogs to grab a sleeve. Most of them will do that. Some of them once in a while are off key and they'll grab a leg or a buttocks or back or something. But the vast majority of dogs are trained to hit and hold. We didn't have any such training back then. Our suits were made out of fire hose and I don't know what else was in that stuff. Burlap and fire hose.
Mhm.
But a good sized dog could give you a rosy just about anywhere because they could bite you anywhere. A rosy is a tattoo, blood tattoo.
Yeah.
So you have those, you got anybody back then has a history of rosies.
Yeah.
So the last 6 weeks to 5 weeks of canine training is you actually working your dog and showing that you can control them, that you can detect incursions into an open area. You do daylight testing first. You continue the aggression and attack training throughout this whole program.
Mhm.
And then about the last 2 weeks to 3 weeks is nighttime training exercises where you actually go out and work on a perimeter so that you have an idea of how your dog's going to respond and alert and let you know that there's somebody there that's not supposed to be there.
During your first nighttime training, was this was this in an area that was dangerous, or was this an area that you knew was safe and you just were getting the hang of?
I think in that respect, the Air Force was pretty smart. We had a northeast gate at Wheelus Air Base that was usually locked. It was an access for special situations only. And it had a little barbecue pit there and an open field for playing baseball, softball, that kind of stuff. And your nighttime training was actually on the baseball field, pitch dark, total darkness usually, unless it was the moon.
Mm-hmm.
But your evaluations were based on whether you had total and complete control of the dog, which you never had had 100% control of your dog. If you were at the 95 to 98% area, then you were top of the pile. So my last 3 weeks was going out every night to the baseball diamond and catching guys in suits that were stashed and hidden in various locations around the ballpark. And then get on the truck, get your gear, get on the truck, you're going to work.
Where were you deployed to after that?
I was at Wheelus for 18 months. I did June, July of 66 until I left Libya in November of 67. I didn't realize that I was on a rather unusual path for a first term Air Force dog handler, but back in those days, you didn't take your dog with you. They do that now. A team is matched up and they stay together through the handler's enlistment.
Yeah.
I had to leave Wheelus without a dog. I think my dog was probably the only US casualty of the June 67 war in Libya. There's still some issues that I have with the Air Force about how his death was reported. I used somewhere, I probably have a French Arcano slug that I pulled out of his chest. I'm sure the round was intended for me. When the 67 war started, I should clarify this. When the 67 war started in the Far East Mediterranean, the Arabs realized that all of those airplanes going through Wheelus, that place looked like O'Hare. 24/7 cargo aircraft coming in from the west, going to the east. After a while, you start realizing where all this stuff is going.
Yeah.
So it's gear going to Israel. And when the war started on June 5th, I was on the only US military installation in North Africa with all of my buddies and the people that were stationed there. We were not prepared for that. We were not prepared at all.
Yeah.
It took over a week to evacuate non-essential personnel, families, wives and children from a base that was under siege. And I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed at Lyndon Johnson for a lot of things. But the first one was the event in Libya. Vietnam was not going well at all in June of 67. A lot of consternation in Congress about things and a lot of consternation at the Pentagon. And when this all started in the Middle East, he had a US military base in the middle of a conflict, and he just slapped a lid on the media. There was nothing allowed, nobody allowed on the base that could report on it, and no information allowed out of the embassy into any, well, the Europeans published it, but you can't control, DC can't control the Europeans.
And you were on that base.
Yeah, I was sitting right there in the middle of the whole thing. So we were, we watched the war, the actual war itself to the east of us was on and off in 6 days. The Israelis dispatched them, bam. I mean, it was done. But we did not stand down from high alert until October. We were still, satchels over the walls, poisoning the water supply for the base. Wheelus was a very, very poorly designed operational. The bomb dump, the largest bomb dump anywhere in US, 548 acres, was 8 miles off base in the Sahara. And so we had a facility 8 miles away from a safe, reasonably safe military installation that we had to secure. And we had a radar and communications center at El Utoya, south of us in the Sahara. Pardon me. That also had to be secured. And so K9 got the brunt of the off-site security requirement. That was the first time I'd ever worked a dog in daylight. But
was that the first time you were shot at?
That was August the 11th of 1967. I'm pretty sure I was sitting on a revetment looking out over the trying to get a view over the top of what should have been a 9-foot block wall, but the sand blows all over Libya. So there were portions of the wall where they could walk up and not have any more than 3 feet of elevation to the top of the wall. Mm-hmm. So during daylight hours, we would, take cover and watch the soft spots on Hot Point. Is what the nickname of that bomb dump was. And my dog was laying right next to me when he got hit. It scared the crap out of me because I thought I got hit. Kind of almost wish I had. It was tough. I did everything I could, but there's nothing you can do. You can't run fast enough.
Was this your first dog? Was this the one that you had to?
First dog, my very first dog in the Air Force. He was Astor 275H. And
I don't know if I have a picture of him. I know you sent some pictures over to Pete. Let me pull up my PowerPoint. Let's see if this.
That is Sam. That is Blytheville, Arkansas.
Okay.
The dog just prior to him was Astor. That's Sarge. That's the meanest damn dog that ever walked the planet, guys.
He looks like a fluffy puppy. Come on.
Yeah. A 90-pound shepherd can pick a 120-pound man off the ground and shake him in the air. That dog did it.
Is that him too?
That is Astor.
This is Astor.
That's my Libya buddy, and he lives with me every day. That dog was absolutely incredible. When I first had,
what made him incredible?
Smart. Mm-hmm. Smarter than I was. We have a saying. We say it jokingly, but it's not really a joke. We have a saying in canine that still stands today, that the leash is 6 feet long. It has a hook in one end and a loop on the other. The hook end is the smart end. The loop end is the stupid end. These dogs, if you've trained them properly and maintained the training, they know exactly what to do. They don't hesitate for a second. And a good handler pays attention to his dog. He's not trying to figure it out for himself. The dog is so far ahead of you that
just senses wise, it can sense, it can see it.
Senses are incredible.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Julia for another pass, because I'll be careful how I explain this. There's an old saying about sentry dogs that my dog can see you wince in the dark from 20 yards away when you pass gas. My dog can smell your passing gas at 500 yards, and he can hear you passing gas at 1,000 yards. You're not going to get away. You're just going to die tired. Once the dog is locked onto you, it's like JDAM hardware. You're toast.
Yeah. And
again, you put that picture of Sarge up there, the lighter colored dog from Vietnam. I have never seen. There's a picture of Astor and I at the bomb dump.
This is in Libya.
That's in Libya. That's probably July or early August of 1967.
Beautiful dog.
He was incredible. It was a tremendous loss for me, and it's something I've carried my entire life. It's no different than losing a battle buddy, because they are your battle buddy. They keep you alive. Mm-hmm.
You talk to people who just have pets and then they lose a pet and they're like, I can't do that again. I'm not going to get another pet. How do you move from having this, like the battle buddy, and then getting another dog and then having to relearn that new dog's, rebuild another relationship with a dog that it's going to be difficult to have, them with you?
A good relation. You just nailed it. You just described exactly what the problem is. Mm-hmm. I lost him on the 11th of August. I left Libya second week of November. So I became what we call a straight leg. That's security guys without dogs. We call them straight legs. So I was doing kennel duty and a whole bunch of other things around the kennel. I stayed canine until I left, but I was I was becoming one of the senior handlers by that time. Mm-hmm. And so there were administrative duties and things that I could be assigned to that I was capable of taking care of. And, but losing that dog, like yesterday, I mean, so coming home was great. The 30 days leave. I was actually allowed to forestall my reporting to Blytheville, Arkansas, the 97th Bomb Wing. I was not a SAC guy, and Ben's probably going to chuckle when I say that.
What is that?
Well, because I just came out of my first go around in the rodeo, real time.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I show up at a SAC base out of the Sahara Desert. I show up at a SAC base in 3 feet of snow with nuclear B-52 loads on the ramp. And these guys, their SAC's mentality was work they might, shine they must. I was supposed to have shiny boots and shiny belt buckles and SAC stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dog handlers, dog teams are supposed to be stealth. They're supposed to be in the dark. You're not supposed to be able to find them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
They can see you, but you can't see them. And you want me to shine like a billboard. My military bearing was tested on my arrival at Blytheville Air Force Base. It took me a couple of weeks to make the adjustment, but I got around to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got around to another one of the most incredible animals when you pop Sam up on that first slide.
Let me get over to him. Hold on.
Yeah, Aster was big, mean, and smart. Sarge was just mean, and mean. Sam, this dog, was smart and
You could
big
tell.
and mean.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever had this dog before I picked him up had too much time on their hands, because I was waiting at the kennels to go on post. I'll admit it now, I had a transistor radio in my possession, which is a no-no. Listening to music before the post truck came to pick us up and take us on post. And listening to a Memphis radio station, Judy in Disguise comes on. And I can feel a tug on my leash. And I turn around and look at Sam, and he's up on his back legs dancing in a circle on the leash. And I'm going, what the hell is this? So the first thing I did is turn off the radio and then get control of my dog. Well, when I turned the radio off, the music stopped, and Sam just went to pores and looking at me like, you're some kind of special stupid, right? And I couldn't figure out what that connection was, but the dog got up and danced on his hind legs. About 3 weeks later, we're in the kennels for a cleanup day, work day, training day, and they're playing music over the PA system in the kennels. And Judy in the Skies comes on, and Sam is in his kennel, standing up on his hind legs, dancing in a circle. One song, and only one song. You could play all the music in the world, from Mozart to the Beatles. He would look at you like you're some kind of special dumb. But the minute Judy in Disguise came on, that dog was on his hind legs dancing.
This is what the guy prior to you was.
So yeah, this guy was just crazy dog. Yeah, absolutely crazy dog. But
Well, I mean, this is one. It's an incredible picture. It's a really beautiful picture of Sam.
yeah,
How big was?
Sam was about 80 pounds,
Okay.
pretty good size, not big.
Mm-hmm.
I
How did you unlearn what did you do the same training with? It was Aster to Sam, right? Aster was the
Well,
first.
the training you take with you, you just keep adding to it. So I
Okay.
had plenty of experience in Libya before I came back. I probably had more real-time canine training than anybody at Blytheville Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing up as a new buck sergeant, so I'm a rank or two above the average dog handler in the kennel. The dog I was supposed to get when I showed, I was actually having medical issues, and unfortunately that dog passed. The vets couldn't save him. He had a gastro problem. And the dog handler that had Sam came down with appendicitis. So you got to manage your assets. Kennel masters are nothing but hole managers. They manage holes on the roster. So I was offered the opportunity to take Sam, and I said yes, as long as it was, you know, on the condition you're not taking him away from me if this guy comes back, and that was cool. So the only real issue in acquiring Sam as a dog is getting into that kennel the very first time, because I take you back to the sole purpose of a sentry dog is to kill or destroy everything but their handler. And you're outside that kennel gate with reading novels and passing contraband candy bars and popcorn through the fence, trying to win this guy over. And probably after 3 or 4 days, if that dog has been in the kennel between handlers for any given time, and he starts realizing that the only way he's going to get out of there is to let this guy in, they'll finally, not totally, but they kind of drop the guard a little bit. And you've got like 3 seconds to get a muzzle on that dog the minute you open that gate. Because the minute he realizes that you're going to put a choke chain on him, he's going to take you apart. So there were a couple of rodeos and kennels for me the first couple of days with Sam. But after that, you know, I think he realized that I wasn't going to hurt him. I was his buddy. You know, we were in this together. We hit the training area. We were doing the obstacle course, and he came around real fast. And he would do things on hand signals. He would do things I could train him to respond to an ear pull. No vocal commands at all. And he could be 100 yards away. He could see me pull my ear, and he knew exactly what to do.
I would think that, you know, you think about movies like Seabiscuit or whatever, like, you know, you watch these movies where like people have sort of that sixth sense of being able to communicate with a dog. Did you feel like you had that from a childhood?
No, and I want you to understand, and I think if you talk to most military handlers, even Army, they're going to admit that they're not the dog whisperer. They're good dog handlers. They're good soldiers. They know what to expect of the dog. They know how this dog is an asset to them, and how everything has to fit together or you're dysfunctional. Yeah. But I was never, I don't even to this day, I have a rescue that my daughter brought me off the desert that was a mess, a Shep female. She was an absolute wreck. Today, she's a mature 5 going on 6-year-old female Shep, about 80 pounds, but she's my guardian angel. She knows everything about me. She knows every attitude, every body movement. She anticipates things before I realize I've made a decision to do stuff. Dogs are incredibly smart. I don't want to take credit away from the handlers, but I also want to make sure, you talked earlier about pet people. Yeah. What I'm about to say is not an insult. Please don't take this wrong. But there's a clear division in a military dog handler's mind about puppy people and dog people. And very, very few ever experience the real dog side of it. It's military canine is less than 1/100th of 1% of the US military. And I don't think we have a head issue. We're not special forces guys with, we don't have an ego issue. Yeah. But we're an entirely different group of, if what it takes to be a good dog handler, you're an entirely different member of a small community that can do that job. We joke, we talk about, you could take a soldier and a sailor and put them together, any generation. Inside of 15 minutes, you're probably going to have a fight. You can take a Marine and an airman and put them together. And I warn them, my Marine kids, my bastard sons who are in the Marines today, don't underestimate the Air Force, if you haven't seen some of these guys in the Air Force now, they're not the Air Force of the 1960s, 70s. These are some big bad boys.
Uh-huh.
But you can take a Marine and an airman and put them together inside of 15 minutes. You're probably going to have a fight. I will let you choose any 2 dog handlers from any of the 5 branches. I'll even include the Coast Guard.
Well, let's do 6 if you're in a Space Force. Let's make sure we fair to them.
Yes, pick any 2 handlers from any of the 5 branches and put those guys together. And inside of 15 minutes, you've got beer. They're different. They're totally grounded in reality. They do a job that the vast, vast majority of the people just couldn't even begin to do. And it isn't just the animal appreciation part of it. That can even be cultivated in somebody with no pet background or no animal experience, as long as they have the requisite components it takes to have that mentality and attitude to be dog. And I think
And when you say to be dog, that's like,
well, it's a term. Yeah,
it's a term. Yeah.
Some guy in 1966 or 67, when K9 first showed up in Vietnam, I'm guessing that this is how it happened, but I think I'm right. Some kid from Alabama or Louisiana got off the plane and walked into the kennels and looked around at the rest of the boys and said, "Hey, dog." And he knew he wasn't talking to a dog. It was Dog the handler. DOG is the dog and DAWG the handler. And that is something that developed specifically in Vietnam. It didn't exist in Korea, didn't exist in Bob Forsyth's generation in the Pacific in World War II. It was something that was unique to the Vietnam dog handler culture. All branches seem to have that. Down home boys did really well in K9. Some of the city slicker boys had issues trying to make the adjustment.
So let's get back to Sam, and you have Sam, you've had him trained. What was the next step?
Working the perimeters of an entire wing of B-52s at Blytheville Air Force Base.
Where's that at?
It's in Northeast Arkansas, right on Four Corners. It's about probably 10 miles from the Mississippi River, about 10 miles south of the Missouri border.
It's a lot different, I'm sure, being in the States doing that than it is in Libya.
Well, it wasn't just a culture shock, it was a physical shock of coming out of the Sahara Desert where the average daytime temperature was 128 degrees, into Blytheville, Arkansas with the worst winter they'd had in 37 years and 2.5 feet of snow, 3 feet of snow. I struck out at base supply before I could get started. There was no cold weather gear for a guy 6'2" and 200 pounds. No jackets, no pants, no boots.
I hear you. 6'2".
And
yeah.
I and 2 other guys that showed up within about a week of me as new assignments to Blytheville had a very unique concession made by a squadron commander that we were allowed to go down to the local sporting goods in Blytheville and get hunting camo gear, jackets, pants, and boots. And but the minute that base supply came back in with our sizes and stuff, we had to surrender the gear. But you know, everybody's walking around in OD green except for these 3 dog handlers that are wearing deer camo or pig camo. Who dat, man? It was a real shocker to find myself in cold weather after being, 18 months is an extended time. I don't believe a medical specialist could qualify this. I don't believe your blood thins out in hot weather, but your brain does. And boy, coming out of the Sahara into snow, wow. That was a shocker.
What about you get back? This is the first time you've seen your family in that long. What was that like?
I got about 2 to 3 weeks, got to go home to Berkeley. It was, as a matter of fact, that was the last time, second to last time that I set foot in Berkeley. Got to see my family, got to say goodbye to a girlfriend that had taken off while I was 18 months off doing Uncle Sam stuff. And I got my head on straight, cleaned out the cobwebs and got ready to go to work.
Did you at that time tell them about Astor?
I think they knew pretty much everything about Astor except for the end, which is something that I figured I was going to have a fight because I was going to fight them on the reporting paperwork that they used in Libya. Astor was reported by the veterinarian at Wheelus Air Base as a death due to gastrointestinal disorder. And this is all part of this Lyndon Johnson slam the lid, nothing about Americans involved in a conflict in North Africa in 1967. And to this day, I have a copy of the 323 form, which is the control card from military service dog, military sentry dogs back in those days, from the day they were acquired to the day they were termed. And it still hasn't changed. And there isn't anybody in the Air Force or the dog program that cares to do anything about it. So I dropped it. How
long did you stay in Arkansas?
I was told that I didn't have to worry about NOM because of what we had gone through at Wheelus. All of us that came back out of Wheelus in the final months of '67, I think were pretty much assured that Vietnam wasn't even a concern. We didn't have to worry about it, having gone through what we did. I was at Wheelus until, or at Blytheville, probably up through February, March, and somewhere in mid-March, I get orders through the orderly and my squadron for Tan Son Nhut Air Base, Vietnam. And I told him, I said, no, wait a minute. I was told that I don't have to worry about a tour in Nam. I have 2 years left, or about 2 years left, but Nam is not an option. I was told I didn't have to worry about it. He says, well, you need to go down to personnel and get it straightened out then. So I took my orders down to personnel, and I finally got to talk to somebody, some E5, a grunt clerk at the personnel department. And he looked at my paperwork and he said, do you know what the A is on the end of your MOS, your Air Force job title? I said, yeah, it's canine. He says, yeah, you're going. The need for dogs in Southeast Asia just exploded in late '66, early '67. But to be totally honest with you, I spent a total of 7 months at home before I got shipped out in August that year. I was not disappointed to leave Blytheville, Arkansas. Even going to Nam, I wasn't disappointed. When people find out that I served at Wheelus Air Base in Libya, and Blytheville, Arkansas, and Vietnam, they say, well, which one was the worst? And I'm sure they're asking either Wheelus or Vietnam. And I tell them, oh no, Arkansas.
Just because of sheer boredom, or?
Well, I'm a Wisconsin. I'm a product of Wisconsin dirt. My parents are, my dad's from Waukau, Wisconsin. The population is under 300.
Yeah.
Farmers. And I would be back on the farm in a heartbeat if my realities of my life would allow that. I'd be a dirt farmer someplace. Where was I going with this?
Because Arkansas was the worst.
Oh, yeah, but here's Arkansas. It's cotton and soybeans. And you'd think I'd be happy, but no. If I joke to this day about the Dairy Queen in Blytheville, it was the civic center of that town. And that town was probably not a whole lot bigger than my dad's Waukau, Wisconsin. There was just nothing to do unless you wanted to go throw a line in the Mississippi. That was it. And I did some fishing, and I'll tell you, the one thing I do miss about Blytheville is the roadside barbecues. And black guys can barbecue better than white boys. These guys would set up their barbecues on the side of the road at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and they'd start smoking the pork and the catfish on their grills. And if you went by that spot on the road anytime from 11:30 on to 2 o'clock, they had the best damn food on the planet. That I miss. I haven't tasted barbecue pork or barbecued fish like that since then. And that's 1967, 68.
So did you have to take Sam with you over to Vietnam?
No, the Air Force program at that time was handler reassigns dog as permanent asset. So had Astor survived, he would have been at Wheelus when we closed the base and turned it over to Gaddafi. He would have been relocated somewhere probably, but not with me. Okay. When I got to Blytheville, I got to work this incredible dog for 6 months, but I had to leave him behind when I orders for Camp Bullis in Texas for pre-combat deployment training, and then on the bird to Vietnam. So
do you know what happened to Sam?
They closed Blytheville Air Force Base on the base closures, the massive base closures in 72, 71, 72. He got transferred down to Florida to Homestead Air Force Base, and he served out his time at Homestead Air Force Base until he died. I have his card too. I've got the control cards on all 3 of my dogs. I have looked all over trying to find the handlers that are listed on the back of Sam's card, because that picture that you have is the only picture that I have of that dog. I should be ashamed of myself.
Probably we weren't thinking too many about taking pictures whenever you were, in Arkansas, but
yeah,
if you're going to have any picture of Sam, it's a heck of a picture. I'm going to bring up one here, and I'm guessing this one's from Vietnam.
That is Utah Ditch. That was a pretty heavy mix-up right about that time. Jardine province, just outside of the perimeter of Tan Son Nhut Air Base. And so I think that was probably the first time I was able to sit down and eat, not standing up, in quite a while.
And this is Sarge.
That's Sarge. You get a pretty good idea of the size of that dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's behind me. About 90, 94 pounds, somewhere in there. Pretty stable on the weight.
A little bigger than your dog, Brad.
Yeah.
Brad's dog usually jumps up on the couch behind him, and he's this tiny little thing you can barely see behind the arm.
Oh, he's not there. I see a little gray thing, but that's not your dog, is it?
It's Max.
It is, yeah. Okay. Hey, cool dog. Cool dog. Every dog is cool.
He's only got one eye, and we've got 2 other dachshunds, so he's at a disadvantage if food goes down on this side of the dog.
Oh.
Where is it? Where is it? But he's hanging in there.
Good. How old is he?
He's 14.
Wow. Yeah, you're blessed. One of the only drawback to Sheps, especially working dogs, is you get about a decade and you're done. Because they're 24/7 on the job, and R&R too far few between.
And Shepherds, aren't they notorious for hip dysplasia?
They are as a breed, but you'll notice that the occurrence of hip dysplasia is most common in the European and German breeds of dogs where the butt end is bred downward. And that's an invitation for disaster. Whoever started that. Julia, can I say it again? Can I say something off color here? Whoever started sloping German Shepherds should have had their ass kicked, because nobody should be allowed to do that to an extremely cool breed of dog or any animal, as far as that goes.
Certainly, I would never label myself as a dog person throughout my life, but I remember being a kid, my dad's family had a German Shepherd. Tara was her name, and just gorgeous dog and really kind. And I was one dog, that breed, that I was always like, I could go for a German Shepherd. They're just incredible.
It's incredible that if you want to breed a dog that's good with babies, get a Shep. No Mals, no Poodles, no, none of these ankle biters, no. Beagles, maybe. But if you want a dog that's going to love your babies, get a Shep.
Mhm.
They are so far ahead of the curve mentally and equipped to deal with, and they know they're babies. The dog knows they're dealing with a baby.
Mhm.
They're extremely intelligent, but it's the same breed of dog that on the other end of that stick, you don't ever want to have to deal with that on the receiving end.
Yeah.
Because it's that same intelligence and agility and size. I'm thinking that it's in the canine manual. I'll check now. You're going to give me cause to go check. I think the specification for jaw pressure, they used a 75-pound German Shepherd as an example, the 4 canine teeth, upper and lower.
Mhm.
There's 750 pounds of pressure on 4 tiny little points. 750 pounds breaks your arm.
Mhm.
If a 75-pound Shep has 750 pounds, what does a 100-pound Shep have?
Or 120 or yeah.
Or 128.
Mhm.
Yeah. There wasn't anything that could match the performance of asset protection in either Libya or in Vietnam for me that ever came close. All the technology in the world couldn't match what a dog could do.
So take me through getting into Vietnam. You get through this ordeal in Libya. It's kind of like it's maybe a little dull back in Arkansas. You're back in the action into Vietnam. But where did they send you? How did you get hooked up with Sarge?
I knew before I left for pre-combat deployment training in Texas that I was going to Tan Son Nhut Air Base in Gia Dinh province, north of Saigon.
Mhm.
That was going to be my base of assignment. I didn't know, I'm crossing my fingers. How in the hell do I get 3 good dogs in a row? All right, because I've had 2 of the greatest dogs on the planet.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, now I'm back into a combat environment and I'd really like to come home. But the dog handlers are the tip of the spear. You're point, or you're at the wire or outside the wire on defending air bases. You're the first thing that the enemy comes in contact with. Kind of a risky job to be in the middle between the bad guys and the good guys sitting in bunkers with machine guns and rocket launchers and stuff like that, because once the gunfight starts, you better learn how to eat dirt real quick. You have to get out of the line of fire. And the only way you could do that is go down. We don't have wings. So you got to find the lowest point in the earth real fast.
And this was a much more kinetic spot than Libya, I'm guessing.
Oh, from the get-go. My first night in country, I sat and vibrated in a bunk at the transit barracks, listening to B-52s dropping on the south end of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, just a couple miles east of me. I mean, it was reality check. I knew that I was back in it again. It was, here we go again, another rodeo. But that pooch, man.
How did you get connected with Sarge?
I walked into the kennels and reported, and the very first thing on your mind, and they know it, is where's my dog? Because you're going to have to sit at the gate with the novels and the candy bars and the popcorn and any other kind of bribery material that you could pass to a dog. All of it illegal, by the way. That's not prescribed training protocols.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get that dog out of there and get to work. So whatever procedure you use to get that dog to let you make that first step into the kennel without going off on you, that's successful.
Mm-hmm. You had described earlier, can you remind me, you described earlier that Astor was which way, Sam was one way, and Sarge was another way.
Every 3 of those dogs was uniquely different.
Yeah.
The only common attribute or characteristic between the 3 of them was just sheer badass. They were vicious.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, the dog at Arkansas shocked the hell out of me. My first night or second night on post, my squad supervisor pulled up in a Dodge 6-pack pickup. Now this is 66, so the Dodge was probably a 62 or a 63. And I don't know if you remember seeing those old trucks, but they had like a refrigerator door where you put your hand behind the handle and you turn it, you swing it away from the body. Well, this is a 6-pack. It's a crew cab. And my boss scooted over to pick up a cup of coffee to put it through a window that was down that far, just large enough for a cup of coffee to go through, because he didn't want to get bit. I don't want him to get bit. I got the dog at heel position on my left. And I reached up to get the coffee, and all of a sudden he's dropping the coffee and he's going out the driver's door. And I'm going, what the hell is happening here? We're on a B-52 ramp, and this guy's acting weird and jumping out of the truck. And all I could hear him yelling was, GD Hemp, get your effing dog. And I looked down, you know, I got the leash in my hand. I looked down to check my dog. My dog had put his paws up underneath the door handle and opened the back door of a crew cab Dodge and was in the back seat heading for my boss.
What?
Now, I talk about the guy that had him before me.
Yeah.
All right. Teaching a dog to dance to one specific piece of music. Are you crazy? And now I find out that him or the guy before him, if the dog had been reassigned, had taught this dog how to open the doors on a Dodge pickup. Well, they want to rip me up. I mean, they want to have my buns for lunch over this issue because it's a clear violation of security and safety. But I'm turning around and looking at them and saying, if you knew this dog was capable of doing this and you didn't tell me, you're the ones that are guilty of, you know, what happened out here.
Yeah.
It got dropped real quick.
Right. Dennis Wojtek in the chat says the former handler was probably a CB. Sam was beautiful. They were all incredible. They're animals, they're dogs, and I'm realistic. They're dogs. But I tell you what, the more people I meet, the more I like my dogs. Yeah.
So
absolutely, Julia. So Sarge, you gain his trust. You're starting to work, you know, the air base there. Obviously very dangerous.
Sarge was a very unforgiving with me at first. He wasn't going to be a player in this team.
Okay.
I watched him very, very carefully. The minute I could see any sign that there was an aggression issue towards me specifically or somebody else in the area, I had to take immediate steps to get him muzzled up. And sometimes that was wrestling on the ground to get the muzzle on without getting bit. Once getting bit, I'd probably get an Article 15 for abusing government property if it was ever known, but I about knocked him out once because he had already bit me in the arm and he was going for my throat, my face. He went calm for a couple seconds. So I was able to get the muzzle on him.
Yeah.
Get a wrap on my arm and make sure that I wasn't going to bleed out on a canine post. Go to work, and then that next morning when we got off, I was real slick about making sure nobody saw me coming in or going out. But
Brad asked a good question here in the chat. Did the dogs get along with each other, especially in close quarters, like the pictures of the dogs and the handlers here, this picture here?
No. And I'll tell you what, that photograph that you see right there was not Ton Sanute. That photograph was taken, I believe, at Benoit Air Base by canine handlers from Benoit. I cannot believe that they got, that's a deuce and a half. That's a 2.5 ton military transport. I find it absolutely shocking. I always have since I saw that photo, that there was not 3 or 4 dog fights going on in the back of that truck. Or it was that one weird moment.
Leavened
A
up.
photographer got a shot of a truckload of badasses who were behaving like puppies. The chances of that happening is zero.
Mhm.
They would try to kill each other. And notice that these are the old basket muzzles. We tried to tell the Air Force that the Marines had a better muzzle. It was a full cover muzzle, solid leather all the way down. No way to get a fang out. Typically sitting in a truck with half that many going to post, you'd have one of those dogs who knew how to get a fang outside the muzzle, and he'd be raking it up and down the leg of the guy sitting next to you before everybody realized that the fight was on. These dogs were not dog friendly, not animal friendly, not people friendly, not with themselves, not with anything. And that is an extremely unusual photograph, worth keeping because it's unbelievable.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Pete sent you that?
Yeah, he sent this to me. I thought I saw a dog in here, but I'm not sure why he sent.
That's my therapy. You should see that thing now. We'll talk about that one later. It's a 71 Camaro. That's what it looks like now.
What?
It's the same car.
Well, see, now we're just going down a whole different rabbit hole here, but you
Oh,
found
yeah,
this car and
well, you got to understand, I have a hat that a very dear friend of mine gave me that I wear once in a while, and it's probably more appropriate that I wear it all the time. And the hat has a patch on the front and it says, "This vet is medicated for your protection." I am a product of my life experience. I came out of the military and I got down the road and I used the characteristics and attributes and the experience that I had. And that's how my careers followed that. I work really well alone. I'm a great team player when everybody is 110% dedicated. When one of them is not, I'm not a team player. I'm the executioner. But this car, I acquired this car out of a pasture. And to my wife's chagrin, it sat in a yard with a tarp over it for 20 years. And then it sat in my garage at a new home under a tarp for another 11 years before I actually tried to see if I could poke holes in the floor panels. In that photograph, it's sitting on brake spindles in the front and the gas tank in the rear. It's on the ground.
Yeah.
And the floor pan was on the ground. Mm-hmm. And there's rust everywhere. But recycle if I could poke holes in the floor pan, build it if I can't poke holes in the floor pan. And when I got around finally with her beating me up for having the car occupying one of 3 slots in the garage, I got the all out of the toolbox and went and pulled everything out of it and started looking for a hole in the floor pan that I could poke. And I could not find a 1971 steel covered with rust, could not find one single weak point in the floor of that Camaro. So it was a build. And 2011, we started it.
How long did it take you to get to this?
I am about 2 weeks away from dropping in the distributor and hooking up the coil and turning the key. But that car that you see in that photograph is about 10% Chevrolet and about 90% my insanity. It was a grandma's 350 automatic in 1971. It is now a 468 big block with an Edelbrock 750, a Muncie 22 rock crusher, Richmond rear end gears, a disc brake conversion on the rear axle, Eaton Detroit springs dropped 2 inches all the way around, Summit Racing sway and sway bars front and back and all the other trick stuff. This is a beast. This is it's never going to be a blue ribbon winner in anybody's car show. My daughter gave me the windshield graphics because My grandson had tagged this car. I have a Navy grandson that's deployed right now. He called it the Frankenstein Camaro. He spent a couple hours on this car with me. He's a bull. He actually directed a 454 big block with a tranny attached into the car because his 74-year-old at the time grandpa didn't have the muscles to do it. But he called it the Frankenstein Camaro. And my second daughter, who is a gift from God, was standing in the garage one day when I borrowed her husband and my granddaughter's boyfriend to put the hood on that car the first time. And a conversation of the Frankenstein Camaro came up and she said, no, Pops, not going to fly. This is the junkyard dog. And please note the dog is DAWG. This girl knows her daddy. My guess is 500 horsepower, about over 500 pounds torque. I'm going to take it to Pomona here in Southern California on the drag strip and run it in a quarter mile. So I have a ticket when people tell me the car never did 12 seconds in 121, because it'll probably do better than that. But it's built for a road course. I'm not going to race it. This car needs to have bugs in the grill. It needs to be out there, me having fun.
Yeah.
And that has been my therapy for the last 3 years right there. It's been an engineering nightmare. I mean, I designed in gremlins from the front bumpers to the back bumpers. But when that thing gets out on the road, there isn't going to be a whole lot of anything around that's going to stick with it for very long. So my biggest issue is brakes. It's going to go like a bat out of hell. I got to make sure that it stops fast. So it's over. I have gone overboard on the brakes on this car to make sure that it stops fast. But
it's interesting because, we've had a lot of different veterans on here that would talk about, this is what I do for therapy. I do writing. I do this. I do that. I write books, whatever. But why was this your therapy?
My wife walked into the garage one night when I was underneath with a torch, and I got weld and metal flux coming down all over my mask, and my shirt is on fire. And I finally crawled out when I saw her feet at the back of the car. And I said, what's up? And she says, what year car is this? I said, it's a 71. She says, 1971? I said, yeah. Oh, now this is a woman who wanted this car out of there for years and years. It was in the way for years. My wife realized that this car was built the same year we were married, 1971. And ever since then, the only thing I can think of is the Johnny Cash song about a 1947, 48, 59, 51, the guy that steals the Cadillac parts out of the factory. Because in the song, one of the lyrics is the guy's wife comes out into the garage one night when they're putting two headlights on one side and one on the other and says, honey, take me for a spin. So I teased my wife about take me for a spin. We're there. We're getting real close. I talked about Waukau, Wisconsin and farm dirt. I found out, I actually found on Google Maps my grandfather's 40-acre farm in Waukau, Wisconsin. And my grandpa's been gone since 1957. So the dirt has changed, but I actually know where I had stood as a kid on many occasions, looking at a barn and the silo and the corn rows and the dairy cows. And I'm going back. That's on my bucket list. I want to stand on the family dirt before I'm gone. Well, I've decided that come September, this Camaro and me and Route 66, I'm going to drive the Camaro back to Waukau Fest 2022 and spend 4 days with that fantastic little community of farm folks back there, do their veteran fundraiser, and then I'm going to drive this puppy home. So there's the Camaro.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah. That therapy, it is, I'm 75 years old. I'm probably not the oldest in the bunch. I'm not the youngest in the bunch, but I'm somewhere in there. That car has probably done more to keep me on my toes, keep the gray matter going, challenging, constant challenge on re-engineering everything. And I'm not an engineer. I'm not a car builder, but I built that one. And it has been more aggravating. It has been more fun. It has been more in giving me a self of accomplishment and peace and calm and working all by myself like a good dog handler, right? Out in the garage at night with nobody around. And
Well, how would you compare that building the car to training the dogs?
I'm training this car, but boy, I think sometimes training the dog was easier.
Yeah.
Training the dog when the dog was compliant was easier.
Mm-hmm.
Training the dog when the dog was obstructing what you were trying to do was harder than building the car.
Mm-hmm.
So this car has brought me a lot of frustration in some respects, but it's something I've been able to watch go together. I could see that gray Camaro with the windshield graphics in my brain when that car was raw steel and not a single part attached to it, sitting all over the garage.
Yeah.
I could see it. Nobody else could. I'm one of several people who can look at that gray car getting ready to go out on the road, and I can recall parts all over the garage. I mean, when I look back, most people have the good sense not to do what I've done. But when I look back, I also look forward because I'm going to have more fun than anybody I know when that car gets out on the road. And we're real close. We're real close.
We certainly can't leave, John, without sort of finishing off Sarge's story. We sort of got really good
Yeah, that was a tangent, huh? I got to see quite a bit. Sarge and I, because I was I became the scene, one of the senior handlers in a very large kennel at a very large airbase. Canine asset got loaned out at times. It wasn't a common practice like it is today, where you find a Navy dog handler assigned to an Army unit or an Air Force dog handler assigned to a Marine unit. Because today the maximum utilization of asset rule applies all the way across. Back in my day, if you were Air Force, that's all you ever worked was Air Force. But because asset became critical on a number of occasions in Vietnam from August of 68 to 69, when additional dog teams weren't available and the people needed the additional dogs, they would borrow from each other, Navy to Army, Army to etc. So I was one of the few guys at Ton Sanut that worked with the Marines or worked with the Army or once worked with both of them. Mm-hmm. That dog, I knew the minute he was awake, he was performing when he was sleeping, but I knew the minute he was awake that I was going to be okay. I would know before the threat was even conceivable, just watching my dog. Mm-hmm. There's a sixth sense in dogs. It's almost like character judgment. If you're a dog person, you know what I'm talking about. Your dog will meet somebody and sometimes they just take to them instantly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they don't want to have nothing to do with this guy. Mm-hmm. I can't explain what that is. Or, you get into the pheromones and the weird. I'm well educated enough to understand most of this stuff, but I could not explain to you why a dog is a better judge of character than any human I've ever met. Mm-hmm. A smart dog, they've made up their mind in an instant. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very similar to, we see the hamburger, we smell a hamburger. They see a hamburger, they see the hamburger, but they smell the wheat in the bun, they smell the mayonnaise, the pickle. They're segregating out the lettuce from the mustard, from the whatever it is, the meat. They've broken it all down in the time that you finally realize you're looking at a hamburger.
Right.
Dogs are incredible and far superior to human beings in a lot of things. Mm-hmm.
So did you leave Sarge, or did he come back with you, or where did he go to?
No, I had to leave Sarge in August of 69. Actually, before that, July. There was a glut of new handlers coming in. I was very close to my D-Rose going back stateside. So I had to relinquish my dog before my tour was actually over. I ended up doing some other crazy stuff down in Saigon. But
that's a story for another time.
yeah, not dog related. And I should probably check with a few people before I comment on it in Zoom. Yeah. Pete and I have had a couple of these conversations too. The other therapy, when it's too cold in the garage or I'm waiting for parts, is a book that I very foolishly, and I say that, I admit that, I very foolishly admit that I agreed to write a book about the Douglas A26. A very dear friend of my mother's, when she retired and moved up to Northern California into timberland, into a little tiny town called Weaverville. The lady that lived directly across the street from her, her name was Pearl. And Pearl was, lost her husband, was retired also, was living on a very limited income, some retirement money from Douglas Aircraft Corporation, as it turns out. In 1991, I'm on the porch with my mom and Pearl having coffee, and I'm trying to explain to my mom that I've got to get back to Chino. I had one more day off. I had promised that I would make myself available to scrape paint and pop rivets on the restoration of a Douglas A26 at Chino Airport at David Talachay's MARC, Military Aircraft Restoration Corporation. I wanted to volunteer on that aircraft. It was important. Predating that, by 1968, on a trip to Ben Hoa in Vietnam, I approached the flight line and I saw a Douglas A26. I knew what I was looking at. As a kid, I had these things hanging from my ceiling on fishing line, Revell models and monogram models of airplanes. Well, one of them was a Douglas A26. I knew nothing of the history of the airplane, but I knew it was a World War II bomber. And it's sitting on the ramp in Vietnam. Now, this is weird. I mean, this is like something's not registering here. What am I looking at? Second day trip, the following day, I had told everybody at Tan Son Nhut that night that I saw a World War II bomber on the flight line at Ben Hoa. And they're, oh, come on, Hemp, you know, you didn't see a World War, there it is. You didn't see a World War II bomber in Vietnam. Yeah, I did. You know, get on the truck tomorrow morning. I'll show you this sucker. Midships, where you see that's an on-mark conversion there with mock guns in the nose, but you see windows on the midships right behind the wing. That was actually the rear gunner's location, and there was a top turret and lower turret on the original A-26s back in World War II, and quite a number of them in Korea as well. The one I saw at Ben Hoa had a hole in it about the size of the star in the insignia. I could not believe that the plane had not broken in half. And it had probably been hit by like 50 millimeter, 55 millimeter North Vietnamese anti-aircraft rounds over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which is where these planes were deployed. I didn't know that at the time. The unit that flew them was the 609th Special Operations Squadron, and their radio call sign was Nimrod. And they had 15 to 18 of these planes from 1966 on through the decommission of the squadron in late 1969. And they were the most effective deterrent to truckloads of ammunition coming down and troops coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They were incredible. They more than F-4C Phantom jets. Their kill ratio was higher than AC-130 gunships. And I'm looking over there at Ben. Don't get mad at me, Ben. The AC models did a tremendous job, but a Douglas A-26 is credited for more truck kills than any other aircraft in the time for that period in the war. I get these guys up. Two of them came with me to go see a World War II plane. And we get up there and the revetment's empty. They had patched this thing up enough to get it flying and sent it back over to Nong Kham Phanom in Thailand, where the Nimrods were based, to finish the repairs, I'm sure, because there was a lot of repairs to do with a hole that big.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the tail number was. I'm talking with those guys now, the old NOM vets, pilots, navigators, crew chiefs, trying to find out what tail number was that aircraft at Benoit with a hole in it in October of 1968.
Mhm.
But nobody's been able to tell me since. The conversation with Pearl on the porch with my mother about me going to Chino, Pearl asked me what kind of bomber it was. Well, I'm looking at a woman in her mid 80s, and I don't hit me, Julia. Okay. I'm looking at a woman in her 80s, and I'm wondering what the hell does Pearl know about World War II bombers? And I said, it's a mid-sized twin engine World War II bomber at Chino. She says, well, is it a Martin or is it a Mitchell? And I'm going, Pearl, what do you know about World War II bombers? No, it's a Douglas. And she says, an A-20 or an A-26? Well, I've got Pearl riled up at me because I'm challenging her knowledge of World War II aircraft, for crying out loud. And I said, it's a Douglas A-26. It's a World War II bomber. She says, I know full well what they are. I built them. Pearl was Rosie the Riveter at the McDonald plant in Long Beach, California in 1943-44, building Douglas A-26s. So
Wow.
she takes over the conversation for another 3 hours. We're talking Douglas A-26. I mean, she knows more about 2,800, right? What is it? Geez, now I got a brain fart. She knew more about the engines and intake systems and injections and cooling and armament than I even could believe I could even embrace. She's spewing this stuff on this porch conversation. But the last thing she said, she says, I want you to go work on this plane, and I want you to think of me while you're doing it, because you might be undoing some of my work, right? But I also want you to write the story. Well, I'm not a writer. At the time, I'm a career investigator. I don't write books. But I couldn't leave the porch. She would not allow me to leave the porch without raising my hand and swearing that I would somehow collect enough information on the three wars of the Douglas A-26 to make it an interesting read for somebody. That history and heritage needed to be passed on. So
you wrote this, but is it available? Where can you get it?
It's a work in progress. I am dueling with publishers right now. I'm absolutely irritated at the attitudes of people in the publishing industry.
Well, maybe
I might end up self-publishing because I just
say
to
Pete's
avoid
done
them.
that, I believe. Pete has a couple of self-published.
There's a couple of aviation publishers that are the only ones that are showing real interest and willing to invest a little bit in this also.
Mm-hmm.
But they've only seen a little bit of the transcript from World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It's a semi-fictional novel. The technology on the aircraft and the history and the evolution of the various models, of which there are 12 different distinct models of the Douglas A-26 from World War II, pre-World War II deployment, to the 40 that were rebuilt in Long Beach, California at Onmark Engineering for the Vietnam War. Where was I going with that?
It was the book. The book is sort of what it's covering.
There are people that are in the publishing industry that I've met that are showing interest in this. Mm-hmm. The technology and the evolution of the technology, I'm pretty sure I can get one off the ground. I'm sure that I could fly. And if you're aviation, please forgive me, but this is not an insult. I have every tech spec, every sheet, every book. on the Douglas A-26 that was ever published. I was not going to make a fool of myself with aviators, navigators, crew chiefs, ordnance guys, gunners, by writing junk. So I know the plane intimately inside and out. I have climbed on board every one that I can get my body into and check things. Where I thought I was going to have difficulty in writing the technology and not having a problem with the fiction part, which is creating a crew for World War II on this plane, creating a Korea era crew, creating a Vietnam era crew. It's turned out the most time that I've spent is in interviewing and talking to the guys who actually flew them, who armed them, who fueled them, who navigated them, because it's fiction, but it's the stories of every one of these guys that has shared something with me in their genre that applied to World War II, Korea, or Vietnam. 3 chapters in the book, under 1,000 pages. I should have a cover on it by August or September. I'm that close to finalizing. Well, and that's how I met Pete.
Oh, okay.
Pete was a referral to me because I was asking questions about a top secret facility in Thailand that he is very, very closely attached to in his past. And I was looking for guidance because it's part of the story of Vietnam and these A-26s on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I didn't want to expose anything that shouldn't be exposed. As it turns out, it's all out there.
Yeah.
There are no secrets. It's out there. So put it together accurately, get the book published. So between the Camaro and the book, best therapy in the world.
John, we're a bit over time now. I want to thank you for your this evening. I'm sorry that we didn't have Pete, but in a way, I'm kind of glad Pete didn't show up because I wouldn't have been sort of leading the conversation. But I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to, because this was an incredible story tonight. I really enjoyed hearing about the 3 dogs in your service and more about just your life and the car and everything. It was just a really cool conversation.
As long as I don't go out in a ball of fire, the car will be fine. As long as I get the book done and actually get it in somebody's hand who wants to read it.
Seems like Henry does. Henry put it in the chat, said, let me know when it's published. I'm going to read it. So
absolutely. I will let you guys know. The only thing that I will ask, I have 2 grandsons deployed right now. The heritage of military service in my family is deep. Pray for my boys and pray for all of our kids. I told you I wouldn't get political. Okay. But they deserve a commander-in-chief. This is not what we gave him. So I can't thank you guys enough for listening to an old man run at the mouth
for 90 minutes.
And Julia, thank you for allowing me to step over the line a few times.
I enjoyed it tremendously. Very interesting.
John, you may not know, Julia is going to be celebrating her 101st birthday in a couple weeks. She was a Navy wave in World War II and helped work on the Enigma machine.
God bless you, lady. Wow. My mom passed in 2018 here in my home at 99, and I knew she regretted. She got so close to the century mark. And I didn't think, and wasn't thinking. 3 or 4 months after she's gone, her birthday comes up in April, and we're celebrating my mom's 100th birthday. I wish to hell I could have told her, Mom, you made it. She was in the bun oven for 9 months.
That should count for something.
Yeah, so add 9 months to 99 years and 7 to 8 months. She made it.
Well, also, I want to give a bit of a side thing here for VBC. I host the podcast, The Scuttlebutt. I talked with a couple combat artists from the Marine Corps last week that we released last Monday. An incredible MOS. And you were talking about, like, one fraction of a fraction get to work with the dogs. It's the same thing in the Marine Corps. If you're a combat artist, it's the smallest fraction of these guys.
You're 1/100th of the 100th of the 1%.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could be a combat artist. Take a pad of paper and your stencils into combat and be
Yeah.
drawing. And I have an incredible conversation with them. You can find on our website if anybody would love to listen. I'd love to hear your
I'll be
thoughts.
looking right
But
away.
definitely, it was great spending the time with you tonight, John. You're welcome to come on anytime to any of our VBC programs. Love to have you back even to talk more about your time in Vietnam. I know we sort of glossed over that pretty quickly, but thank you so much for your time tonight, and hope to get this chance to see you again soon.
I'd be looking forward to that. It's been an extreme honor. I'm sitting here wondering, I'm the only one that spoke tonight. Somebody else should have been making a contribution here, right?
We had some great engagement in the chat, and usually whenever we focus on a particular guest, they have the floor, so we get to sit down and listen to their story. So we just appreciate you. You didn't even have to take a drink, so you're your own Iron Man.
I'll tell you what, as a veteran, I am honored. I thank you for what you're doing. The story needs to get out there, because if the rest of us old crusty bastards keep our mouths shut, nobody will know the story.
John, great stories tonight, John. Really enjoyed them.
Thank you, Dennis. And I look forward to being the quiet guy in the back on one of these, because I'd love to hear somebody else get up and
every Monday night. We'll see you hopefully then, but that's when we'll be back, Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. John, you have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
God bless you all.